increase motivation, we have to first realize there's internal motivators and external motivators.
But also learn how to control my anxiety and not let it overwhelm me.
At the end of our conversation, we have to agree to disagree. Compromise is good. All right. Welcome to another Tea Time with Tommy. We are here today at a beautiful campus, Tusculum University, the oldest campus in Tennessee, which, as you can see, the orange, which is, indicative of Tennessee. We're excited to be here. We've been planning this for a while. I'm here with my daughter, Isabel Delbridge. She's the one that makes the magic happen online. So we're here today to kind of answer questions. We sent out a survey a couple months ago, received that survey back with a bunch of questions, which I was really excited about. So we are going to kind of show you kind of what a typical, well, except for the microphones and stuff, but a typical therapy session where like you're bringing questions and the therapist has to answer the questions. Because if you go to therapy and you don't really have a plan, right, it might be counterproductive. So always, whenever you go to a therapy session, have a plan. So Isabel, is there anything you would like to share?
Welcome to Tea Time with Tommy. Okay, let's get to the questions.
All right.
Okay, so, and these are the followers' questions, and we're going to be answering all of them, but I just wanted to start out with the first one, and that is, how can you increase motivation?
Ooh, okay. That's a good one because a lot of people struggle with motivation. So the way we increase motivation, we have to first realize there's internal motivators and external motivators. So internal motivators, right? You're working a job and you feel like you've accomplished something. External motivators, you're getting paid for that job. So that's your external motivators. So the way you increase motivation is to make sure that you're having both internal and external motivators. Because if you have one or the other and it's not balanced out equally, it becomes discouraging. So the best way to increase motivation is to make sure that you have an internal and external motivator.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay. So the next question is, it's a lengthy question, and I think there's about 3 questions in it, but it says, when can you tell the difference between venting/releasing and complaining? I often find myself feeling like if I just talked out or released everything that was bothering me, that it would help. But then to others, it may just sound like complaining. How can I be mindful of knowing if I'm releasing or complaining?
That's a really good one. So venting, releasing, and complaining are very similar. And there's a place for that, right? So I think the listener was saying, how can you be mindful? So there's a mindfulness approach to everything. I have 2 life rules, and I've always shared these life rules. Isabel, would you like to share my life rules? Come on. 1, think.
Think before you speak.
Think before you speak.
And you're going to have to give me a first word.
Tone.
Oh, tone means everything.
Tone means everything. How many times have I said that?
A lot.
Okay. So be mindful that when you are complaining or you're releasing or venting, that your tone makes a difference, right? Because you could be complaining or you could be just venting, but it sounds like a complaint when you have a negative tone to it. Also, think twice, speak once. So think about how you're going to say it, think about it again, and then say it. So that is how you can be mindful to what the difference between venting, releasing, and complaining is. Because it really comes down to your tone and how you say it and what you say. Okay.
Well, that goes to our next question. How do you encourage others that struggle with mental health when you're struggling with mental health issues such as depression?
That's a great question, right? Because in life, sometimes our role is to be the encourager because we want to help others. We want to help others be better people, better successful. And sometimes when you're struggling with your own stuff, it's hard. So you have to learn how to compartmentalize, right? And I know I'm saying everything I'm saying, right? I'm answering the questions quickly, Isabel, but honestly, it would be an hour that I would answer this question. So, and you told me ahead of time that I don't have an hour to answer this question. So, she's very good at telling me to, speak less. So, we have to compartmentalize. So, in your mind, you literally imagine a box. And in that box, whatever that box looks like, so say it is depression you're dealing with. And so in your mind, that depression box is a soggy cardboard box. And what you do is just stick the depression in the soggy cardboard box in your mind, imagine it, put it down with duct tape, right? You can open that later. But right now, you need to be encouraging and you need to be helping someone else. And you need to be that person that feeds positivity into the other person. Doesn't mean you're not depressed. It just means you put the depression into a box for now and working on that with your own therapist, right? You should never, ever be to the point where you want to share with others but not get the help you need yourself. I'm a therapist. I have a therapist. And it's important to know that I hear a lot of things. So sometimes I have to put my own stuff on my own baggage, if you will, put it in a box and let that box sit there in my mind, in the back corners of my mind, knowing that I'm going to be able to open it up later and kind of deal with it. But right now, I want to encourage the person in front of me.
Nice. So these two questions are kind of the same.
Okay.
One person said their concern was my mental health due to continuous anxiety and trauma. But I feel like this kind of goes with the next question, and it's what are some physical things that cause anxiety?
Okay, so physical, one, you mentioned trauma. Mm-hmm. Trauma is one of those things that causes anxiety, but also stress. We have to realize that stress causes anxiety. Your body has a natural hormonal release called cortisol that releases whenever you're feeling stressed. And so, it's primal instinct, right? Back in the caveman days when cavemen used to, have to be aware of their surroundings and what was danger and how to react to danger. So our primal instinct is how do we react to danger to allow us to say, okay, stress happens. But what's happened now is that people can't identify what different stressors are. There's a positive stress and there's negative stress. So positive stress would be a test, right? I know that sounds like we're in a college campus right now and it's midterms and everybody is at a high stress level. But what is the ultimate goal, Isabel, for doing that test and completing all your courses?
To graduate.
To graduate. It's stressful, but there's something positive at the end of that stress. A negative stressor would be, say for instance, you get in a car accident and you get injured and realize that that's trauma and that's anxiety and that's stress. So then every time you get in the car, you might have this anxiety trigger. There was a TikTok video. I know, be careful what you learn on TikTok. But there was a TikTok video I saw, and it was this person sending an email, and they said, telling my primal brain that this is just an email and a bear's not attacking me. Because sometimes you feel like that you're getting anxiety from sending an email, but really you got to remind yourself that's a positive stressor, the way you're sending the email, the way you respond, the way you connect with people. Yeah, anxiety, right, it produces this fight or flight response, and so you have to put it in the category, right? Positive stressors or negative stressors. Does that answer the question?
definitely answers the question. It's kind of funny because me personally, with my therapist, we've talked about that. About she was telling me that I should learn how to identify certain triggers when certain situations happen. Like we were talking actually last week about how, like I can take positive and I can always make it negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, me graduating, yes, I'm so excited. Like I can't wait for this new journey. And then my brain tells me, wait, what are you going to do after you graduate? Because that's the question I keep getting questions for. And then I start to feel like a gut punch in my stomach when in reality I should be proud of myself that I am graduating, but also learn how to control my anxiety and not let it overwhelm me with the, thoughts of feeling like I'm not, like, because of what are you going to do after you graduate, and I don't have that answer. I'm very a go-getter, so knowing that I don't have an answer for that, it sometimes can make you feel like you're worthless and you really just took a good thing and made it bad, and that's my brain. But I'm trying to work on that, so.
So, yes. So, Isabel has her own therapist, and it is not me. So, but what? I would like to point that out to the viewers. So, but I do.
Imagine you're just a dad who's a therapist who likes to talk about everything. But anywho,
and I don't.
You can't be a therapist to me.
I know. There's a conflict of interest. What? What do you mean I try?
Just kidding.
Okay. So, but I guess that's to wrap all that up in a nice perfect box, as we did the rabbit trail, is to remind yourself that I think that like this is just an email. This is just a test. This is just etc. And it's not a bear chasing after me. So.
Another question. This was actually my favorite question because I feel like it relates to, I guess you would say younger generation, but also maybe older. I don't know. Anyways, how do you deal with a situation to where you undoubtedly in love with someone, but they don't feel the same way as you?
So that question requires a lot of follow-up questions. Like, have you told this person how you feel about them? Like, and without a doubt, like I do couples therapy, but I also do, like, I work with college students and I work with young adults, even some of the older adults I work with that are single, and I have to say, like, nobody's a mind reader. You can't just assume that person doesn't have the same feelings about you if you don't ask them and talk to them first. So, first of all, you're not a mind reader. They're not a mind reader. I know there's a lot in couples therapy. I get a lot of like, well, he should know or she should know. That's communication. That's the number one key in a successful relationship. It's communication.
I actually saw this thing the other day, and it was like, yes, communication is key, but I've realized that compromise is also a number one thing. That I feel like a lot of couples, yeah, you can communicate it, but if you're not agreeing with each other and you're not compromising some things, then what's the point of communicating?
Yeah,
and when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's so true, that no one really talks about the compromises that you have to make in a relationship.
Yeah, there's a thing called fighting rules in couples therapy, right? Every couple's going to fight. I'm not talking about like fist fight, right? I'm talking about like every couple's going to fight, every couple's going to argue. So why not have rules associated? And one of those rules is if we can't agree at the end of our conversation, then we have to agree to disagree. Compromise is good. If you can get to the compromise, great. But sometimes you're not going to be on the same page. So, going back to the original question.
Yeah, because I'm like, wait, now that's like a totally different question.
Yeah. The original question is, like, what if the person doesn't have the same feelings for you as you do for them?
I was scrolling on Instagram last night, and I actually found this quote. Okay. And I was like, this is perfect for this question. But this person said, when we stop forcing people to choose us, we make room for people that were created for us.
Man, that is mind blown. No, but seriously, like, maybe there's something better for you, but you're too busy chasing after something you can't get, or you're not going to be able to. If they don't if they don't have the same feelings for you as you do for them, you're not going to force it to happen, right? Maybe they're not supposed to be the one. Maybe there's another one out there, and you just have to be willing to say, okay, I have to move on. It doesn't mean it hurts any less, right? You're going to have some grieving, right? There's 6 stages of grief, and then really quickly, Isabel's like, oh my goodness. No, really, I'm going to really quickly. There's bargaining. Oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? What? And then there's sadness, and then there's anger, and then there's the depression, right? You have all these feelings, and then it comes to acceptance. But in 2020, they came up with a 6 stage of grief because so many people were like, you accept and that's it? No, you have to find a sense of purpose, and that purpose might be helping someone else to connect, or finding another person to connect to, or being okay being single until you find the right one. So
that is perfect, because the next question is about 2020. Have you seen an increase in what I would refer to as
disabilitating? Is that what it is? You give it to me.
That's so embarrassing. Hold on just a second. Have you seen an increase in what would refer to as destabilization?
It's a good thing you're graduating this year.
Words are hard.
Destabilization.
Destabilization. Okay. Have you seen an increase in what would refer to as destabilization of people that pre-pandemic never thought they struggled with mental illness, depression, anxiety, or fear before?
Yes. Short answer is yes. Remember, okay, so that word destabilization means that they're not stable anymore. And let's be honest, pre-pandemic, even I remember we went to Gatlinburg 2 days before, like with the youth group, 2 days before the world shut down. And we were joking in the back, like I could hear the young people as I'm driving up the mountain, and they're like in the back of the van talking about like, man, what if we do get COVID? Like, what's going on? Like, what is COVID all about? And nobody knew that the world was shut down right away. Like, it happened worldwide. It's never happened worldwide before. So yes, people are concerned. People are worried about like what's happening. What is, like, COVID hasn't gone away. We could say it's gone away, but I mean, we got COVID at Thanksgiving a couple months ago, right? It's still there. It's still causing anxiety. It's still causing worry. It's causing people to not be stable. What we have to do, that's why the rise and increase in medications during 2020. I don't know if anybody knew this, but they ran out of anxiety meds. So the CDC says you have to have 2 weeks worth of supply in the supply chain, because of, like, in case of a disaster, natural disaster, whatever, that you have these meds. There were so many people getting those meds that supply chain was gone, and then people couldn't, get their medications for a couple months until they got the supply chain backed up, because so many more people are getting meds than ever before. And that kind of gives that question of like, yes, this pre-pandemic, like post-pandemic, more people are stressed, more people have anxiety, more people have depression, but also everybody needs to give themselves permission to realize never before had this world experienced this. Even when I went to college, I didn't go to college with this idea of like, hey, they didn't have an extracurricular class of how to work in a global pandemic. That was not a elective. Now you have the new therapists coming in, right? Younger therapists that are getting degrees knowing what the pandemic is about. So you have to give yourself permission to know that it's okay to not be okay. That's a key word. It's a key phrase. Okay, it's okay to not be okay. All right.
So, with the increased awareness and seeming acceptance of reaching out for help with mental health, do you find that more people are assessing therapy modalities?
Yes. It's a simple question. Our simple answer to a complex question. I've seen more an increase of more people saying, hey, what kind of therapy are we having? Are we having like cognitive behavior therapy? Are we having trauma focused therapy? Are we having whatever therapy, you name it? There are so many different modalities of therapy out there, and it's not a like one thing fits all. The most common therapy but most therapists use are cognitive behavior therapy. But then there are some therapists that are like specializing in trauma therapy, and there's some that are specialized in family therapy or couples therapy. I would encourage you that if you haven't found the right therapist for yourself yet, if like I tell everybody, finding the right therapist is like dating, right? You're like looking at me like, what? If it's not the right person, like it's okay to move on. Don't be stuck in a relationship that's uncomfortable for you just because they're the expert. You could always find another therapist. Not every therapist is made the same way. We all have the same trainings, but some therapists have different techniques. So yes, there are more modalities that people adopt for therapy, and also And I'm trying not to be nice, but in this age of TikTok, I have people coming in being like, hey, I think I have ADHD because I saw this on TikTok. Okay, be careful to not self-diagnose. Be careful. Yeah. Let the expert diagnose you. You don't diagnose yourself. Okay.
That is true.
I'll get off those soapbox.
Okay. If there were top 3 pieces of advice for parents who are raising children today to help foster an environment conducive to mental health care, what would they be?
So top 3?
Top 3 pieces of advice for parents who are raising children today.
So just kind of a little bit about my background is my wife and I helped raise probably 80 to 100 kids over our lifetime, Isabel. You've been part of that. A lot. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And so the number one piece of advice I would give a parent is that you don't have to be the perfect parent, right? You're practicing. These kids are resilient. Kids are going to kind of go through life being like, okay, it's my parents said something to me that like was negative, but I can apologize and work through it, right? And be loving. Number 2, be loving, right? Be loving. Be available. In the world we live now, like, I mean, you're on your phone while we're talking right now. So, did I call you out? Sorry.
Okay. It was because I was looking at your question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But
you're loving. You're not very loving right now. Practice what you preach,
But what you don't want to do is be on your phone. Like your kids need to connect with you, and they're not connecting with you when you're on your device, and your kids aren't connecting with you when they're on their device. So allow some times for your kids to connect with you. So be loving, allow time for connecting, and it's okay not to be the perfect parent. Those are the top 3 advice I would give.
Nice. So we're down to our last question.
Wow, this was fast. I don't even know how long.
We've been here for 40 minutes.
40?
Yes.
Well, that's my internal clock as a therapist. I have 45 to 50 minutes billable time. So
yeah. So
it's a joke. It's a joke.
Okay. So as families work to Sorry. Sorry. As families work to navigate early marriage and child raising, what would you tell them is the best way to ensure a strong foundation for a lifetime? Oh my gosh. Let me try this question again.
Okay.
As family... Ooh, that's a little close.
That was loud. And we're down to the end, the last question. And we kept it together until then.
Okay. As families work to navigate early marriage and child raising, what would you tell them is the best way to ensure a strong foundation for a lifetime commitment of marriage in a world that supports the concept of, if it doesn't work for you, file for divorce?
That's. You said we've already been here 40 minutes. I can't go another 40. Okay.
No.
You can always schedule an appointment if you need extra, but here is like a nutshell of like what we need to think about. You're two separate people you're coming together. Both of you are bringing baggage. Both of you are bringing your childhood experiences. No, it would be boring if you both were just the same exact way. And it's kind of weird also. So be willing to say, like, we're two separate people. We have to work it out. And divorce should never be an option. One thing my wife and I said when we first got married was divorce is not in our vocabulary. Now, granted, there are exceptions to that, right? Right. There's reasons why a divorce needs to happen,
mm-hmm.
right? I don't want anybody to ever be in an unsafe place. But also ask yourself, is it unsafe or are you just uncomfortable? There is a difference. So be willing to say, okay, we're going to build a strong foundation. There's a verse in the Bible that says a 3-cord rope cannot be broken. And too many people are busy with doing their thing separately without having Jesus in the middle of that cord. So a 3-cord, be willing to communicate. Be willing to talk. Be willing to talk about the hard stuff. It used to be, and this is going to get uncomfortable for you, Isabel, but the number one and number 2 reasons why divorce happened was because of disagreements about finances and disagreements about sex. Now, the number 1 reason of divorce is happening is lack of communication. And that boils it down. You need to communicate. You need to talk. You're not mind readers. You need to be able to communicate together. You need to ask those questions. Be willing to be more than just parents. A lot of divorces are happening now after the kids move out the house because parents do not know how to connect together. They only know how to parent together. And you need to do both. Mm-hmm. And you can do both successfully. And everybody's at a different season, right? When Mom and I first got married, like we were doing our best to afford diapers. And that's just reality. And so like there was one time, there's a funny story about us going to Sonic and having to share a Sweetheart milkshake was what they had special for Valentine's Day because that's all we can afford. And be willing to admit that. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. If you can't afford to do it, be willing to say, okay, we're going to save it till we can. And knowing you're not always going to be here in life, because as you go on, it's just a natural progression of life that sometimes things get worse, things get better, but things do change, and you have to be willing to adapt with the change. Is that good? Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, as we wrap this up, we appreciate the time that we've had together at Tea Time with Tommy. Too bad you forgot to get my tea. And did you even sip any tea?
I did.
Oh, okay, cool.
So.
But this has been Tea Time with Tommy. We'll see you next Tea Time with Tommy. And also, if you made it this far, what should I say?
What was your...
I love Tea Time with Tommy. Just kidding. Hey, what was your word?
I was going to say, what was the favorite piece of advice you got?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let us know if you want more Q&As. So, but yeah. Would you like to end anything?
This was another Tea Time with Tommy.